Between tariffs and immigration raids, Donald Trump has basically torched the U.S. construction industry. And yet it stayed pretty silent, at least until now. According to Politico, construction executives and home builders have held multiple meetings over the past month with the White House and members of Congress. They say immigration raids at job sites and in local communities are scaring off workers. And it's driving up the cost of home building when this country desperately needs more housing. Many construction executives say that they didn't expect enforcement to go quite this far, particularly in Republican strongholds like southern Texas. Mario Guerrero, CEO of the South Texas Builders Association and a Trump voter who traveled to Washington last week, told Politico, quote, "I told lawmakers South Texas will never be red again." And Mario Guerrero joins us now. Mario, thank you so much for being with us. So I want to ask you a little bit about the role that the private sector has to play in all of this. The government has been conducting these warrantless raids on construction sites around the country for the past year. And to my knowledge, not a single business or industry group has been willing to stand up and sue over it. I know you're having these meetings with lawmakers and with the White House, but I'm only aware of exactly one case where someone is suing the government over these warrantless raids on construction sites, and it's a worker, a U.S. citizen, who has been detained by ICE multiple times. He's been willing to stick his neck out, but industry has not. And the government's argument in that case is that it is up to businesses, not workers, to push back. They are the ones who have the standing to sue. So why haven't you seen that kind of pushback from the industry?
I believe that the reason, well, first off, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of y'all's show. But what I believe that it is that we know that construction sites are basically considered to be open to the public. So meaning that at any given day, if you're walking around and you see a house that's under construction, you can walk into it. There's nothing that's basically separating you from the house and a person to enter that particular construction site at any given time. So it's really hard for a construction company to go ahead and actually sue the administration in regards to that. Now, we were in Washington about a week ago with Mr. Henry Cuellar that put these meetings on and together with us. And on one of the meetings that we had, it was with somebody directly from ICE. I cannot say his name. We were asked to make sure that we do keep his name off records. But one of the things that we did talk about was the private property. You know, we do buy these particular pieces of land. We do purchase them outright. We also go ahead and build on them. And we wanted to know what is private property. Now, like I said, and I'll reiterate, it's not considered private property if it's not fenced in. So now we're taking that information and we are already in the moves of fencing in our construction sites because they're saying that you need to fence it in order to be considered private property.
Seriously? You tell that to some American citizens in red states that their private property that's not fenced in is subject to warrantless search, and woo!
Well, we have had people on the show who have actually had federal agents jump over fences in order to do what they wanted to do. So I'm not sure that will
to catch construction workers or to detain construction workers, I should say.
So Mario, I want to ask you. So you've been open about the fact that you supported President Trump. Given what you know now, knowing what you know now, if you could go back, would you still support him?
This is what I'll say, since I've been asked this question multiple times. Right now, in the moment of time, I would not. Just because we're seeing a very strong enforcement policy, not just on construction sites, but right now it seems very racial. It seems like it's very targeted towards a specific group of people, which is the Hispanic population. So no, obviously not. Now, I have been asked this before, and I will say that as a businessman, and you see everything that he's been able to accomplish with his construction company, it's hard not to be able to admire certain accolades that he does have. People like to say, well, he got $1 million or whatever dollars from his family, but I know so many people that have gotten money from their family and throw it away. So with that being said, there's certain things that from one person to another, politics aside, that I do respect. Now with what we're dealing with nowadays, It's something that myself and a lot of my constituents that I have in my organization were not seeing or didn't foresee happening. You know, we come from a very specific place, which is South Texas, right? And in South Texas, we saw an extreme with President Biden. And what I mean by extreme, I mean it was something we had never seen before. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that were at our borders. Any given Sunday, it's very common and normal for our families to go to Mexico and have lunch. And it's very normal for us to walk over through the bridge, and then you show your credentials and you go eat and then you come back. That's something that's very normal. And even in those normal things that we were doing during the Biden administration, we saw hundreds of thousands of people thrown on the ground, living in tents, literally swimming.
Regardless of your objections to policy under Joe Biden. That's okay. But we want to talk about the circumstances today, which is that, again, this administration is rounding up people simply, it seems, because of how they look and the occupations that they are in. And this Supreme Court has basically blessed that sort of racial profiling, that so-called Kavanaugh stops. They are apparently trampling construction sites simply because they're not fenced in, I guess, and rounding up in many cases, U.S. citizens, that was the lawsuit I referred to earlier, that has to be hurting your bottom line. It has to be alienating businesses like yours, other industry groups, I mean, not just construction, anyone who works in food services or healthcare or a lot of other sectors that are very heavily reliant on immigrant labor. And I guess the question is, how can you still see, or how can the business community and or Latino voters, and there's quite a bit of overlap between those two groups, continue to remain silent or put up with these kinds of policy measures that are very clearly hampering lots of people's lives and livelihoods?
I don't think that the people that are in the Hispanic community are going to stay silent anymore. The one thing about the Hispanic culture is that we're raised to be good-hearted people, and we take a lot from people. So what we like to say in Spanish is "somos humildes." That means that we're humble people. But you can only push the Hispanic culture so far before they start raising concern, and that's the reason that I basically had to cry for help, because it became so normal for us to see ICE agents following concrete trucks to concrete pours, literally waiting for them to start the job. And then they would go and apprehend all these people with the proper credentials to work, people that had credentials given by the Biden administration that now we're being told that those credentials they're not valid for this administration. So they're also being apprehended and taken away. And one of the things that people need to understand, that's just one example. And in that example, you're seeing a loss of upwards of $30,000 when you're just pouring foundation. There's so many things that go into pouring a foundation that you're already in a negative. And that trickled effect that we've seen for a year has actually put us halt on companies. Now,
but
there's
it's also
companies
it's not just a financial hit, right? This has actually gotten personal for you. Since you've started speaking out, you've faced death threats.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am, I have. I find it funny, like I think it's very sad, because we should understand as American citizens that we live in the best country in the world. We're able to have open dialogue like we're having here today, and we should be able to raise our concerns. That's why our politicians are here, and that's why we, the people, have put our politicians where they're at in order to represent us in the good and in the bad. Now, if you're going to send me death threats over the way that I see something, and if I personally believe that it's wrong, and not just myself, the organization that I represent has over 158 companies in that organization. We're at over, you could say if every company has 4 people, you could do the math how many members we have, right? I have not spoken to somebody that is okay with what's going on. I had to raise a concern because I have friends that are also business owners that they honestly see something where this is not right. Now, if people are going to send me death threats because I'm raising a concern on that, I think it's funny, because I don't even have the time to eat some days. So I just think it's funny.
Well, it's a strange political environment, but you are not the first guest we've had on this show who has said that they've faced those kinds of threats and attacks just for speaking out about the impacts of the facts, just what's simply happening to them. Mario Guerrero, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's really great to speak with you and to hear your story and your perspective.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.